You're listening to a special presentation from Night of the Living podcast, Zoned Out, the Twilight Zone, revisited with Freddy and Joe.
Freddy and Joe, Joe and Freddy, Freddy and Joe, Joe and Freddy. It's got to be some good theme song in there.
Yeah.
For the Freddy and Joe show.
Every Monday night, or no, every Friday night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, following Mork and Mindy.
Bum, 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 bum.
Oh, man.
This is whatever station. Yeah.
WKRP.
Hi, Freddy. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good. By the way, I learned about something from a friend of mine, Matt Hoffman, who works for Trauma. We saw each other when we were at Horror Hound Weekend, and I talked to him. Maybe one of these days we'll have him come on the podcast too, because he's a huge Twilight Zone fan. But
that'd be great.
He turned me on to Serling Fest, Rod Serling Festival.
Oh, yes. I've read about that. I haven't ever gone or that, but I did a whole bunch of looking at that at one point when we were thinking about doing the podcast, because it seemed like a really cool event.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's not like a wild, huge convention, I don't think. It seems like a real low-key kind of, almost like panels, entirely made of like panels and screenings and stuff. But he told me about it. It's in Binghamton, New York, where, we've already talked about that in walking distance.
Yeah.
At Rod Serling's hometown. That's where they hold this festival, and it has the bandstand, and it has a statue of Rod Serling there now, and it's in September, I think. But for a while it seemed like they weren't even going to do another one, but it'd be amazing if we can somehow make it out there.
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be fun. But regardless, if you're a fan of the Twilight Zone, you're listening to this, you might have already known about the Serling Festival, but I thought it was really pertinent to this week's episode because the Greyhound line that they're referring to is the Binghamton line.
Yeah.
So this, again, written by Rod Serling. Original air date, February 26th, 1960. Directed by John Bram. This is his fourth episode that we've seen so far of 12. The other ones we've already covered, Time Enough at Last, Judgment Night, and The Four of Us Are Dying. So check those episodes out if you want to hear more about John Bram.
Some great episodes.
Yeah, definitely. And 12 episodes is a nice chunk. But you also got to keep in consideration when you think about the Twilight Zone versus modern TV. 12 episodes is a season or more of modern TV.
Right.
But this season has over 30 episodes in it. This first season of the Twilight Zone. So it's just, about a third of the first season's episodes. Put it in perspective.
Yeah.
Stock music again, which works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's the usual foursome. I have struggled. I looked up how to pronounce this, and I think I've already forgotten how, but Garankwek, is French, I believe. Goldsmith, Herman, and Morowek are the composers whose music was chopped up and remixed to make the episode score. Cast of 9, including Serling as the host. And, one of the things to do in Binghamton is to go to the Greyhound bus station exterior. It's
That's perfect.
To be, yeah.
I forget which in the episode when we get into it. One of them is from Binghamton. He
came from Binghamton. I don't know. He said he was in Binghamton before, I guess that was his last stop or something.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. He may have even, like you said, he might have even been from Binghamton, but interesting about that guy. And I'll kind of jump ahead to him. That's Martin Milner. That's Paul Grinstead's the character. This guy might look familiar if you grew up watching syndicated TV, because he was on Adam 12 and Route 66. So or Route 66. And so he was in syndicated TV. His face would turn up a lot. But another reason you might recognize him is he was the inspiration for the original Green Lantern Guy Gardner illustrations.
Really?
In 68. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, when he was 37, they based that how old he was when he modeled for that. If
That
he,
weird
yeah,
bowl cut, short, bizarro haircut that Guy Gardner has.
we're getting
Those
that
of you who are
back.
comic book fans.
What Nathan, I forgot his from Firefly is playing.
Nathan Fillion.
Thank you. Is playing
Yeah.
Guy Gardner in the Superman movie.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
He's got the bowl cut and everything, man. The Dorothy Hamill, is that what it is?
It's like that, except like literally a bowl. Like they just cut it all off at one. It's a very unique look. We'll call it that.
I love that the new movie they're including it because it is one of those things that is just objectively kind of dumb looking.
Is he wearing a vest and all that too? Then
it looks just like the comic book.
Wow.
Yeah,
I gotta watch that preview.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. Oh, sorry if that's a spoiler. That anybody didn't want to even know that he was in the movie. I apologize, but he is. It's the cat's out of the bag. The other main performer in this who carries most of the episode is Vera Miles, who plays Millicent Barnes, who is our hero, heroine of the story. She's hanging out at the Greyhound bus stop as strangeness begins when we get into the synopsis with Joe. But she's best known for playing Lila Crane in the Psycho movies 1 and 2. She was Marianne Crane. Was that the sister who signs in under the fake name? Janet Leigh's character's sister is what I should have just gone straight for that.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And she's been in 3 movies. This Vera Miles been in 3 films that were all selected by the National Film Registry as historically or aesthetically significant. It was The Searchers, the Western, Psycho, and another Western, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which was also a pretty popular song. And she's still living in Palm Desert, California.
Wow.
So she's one of the few.
Unique to come across somebody who's still alive from these.
Yeah, especially someone who was an adult in the episode. Like Billy Mooney comes to mind, and we'll get to him in future episodes. But but he was a kid when he appeared.
Yeah.
But I was really happy to see that she was still around.
Very cool.
And then just a couple more real quick notes on the cast. Martin Milner, we already talked about, but Joseph Hamilton, who is the ticket agent character.
Yeah.
Who I really like, who is kind
of crabby ticket agent.
Yeah. And you kind of get why he's crabby because we'll get into he thinks some people are screwing with him all night long.
Right.
So he was famous for playing a handyman in a series of ads for Ajax, the soap.
Okay.
So that was he was recognizable to audiences as that guy. But he also had 81 acting credits. So pretty prolific for the era. That's common. It seems like for a working actor to have these huge numbers of credits. It's way different now. This episode was also cited by Jordan Peele as his influence for us, or an influence for us.
Oh, interesting. I can see the connections there.
Yeah,
definitely. And actually, there's a lot I think we can talk about when we get into it, because there's you could play this a whole bunch of different ways.
Yeah, I say go for it.
All right,
dive in.
So we get started. It's a dark and stormy night. You can see the lightning created, I'm assuming, by a Tesla coil, because it's doesn't look like natural lightning. But and what's kind of interesting, you see most of the people in the episode in this opening shot inside this bus depot, and it's an old couple that are sleeping. A cleaning lady sweeps by the bus depot. I called him a clerk, and Millicent Barnes, our main character. So she is sitting there and she checks in on the status of the bus, and the clerk is crabby, he responds pretty gruffly to her, and he's
I don't know what kind of crack you kids are taking these days.
Would you quit asking me about this damn bus? So she asked him, and he's like, it's the same as you just asked, 15 minutes ago, as you asked a half hour ago, and she's like, okay, I didn't do that, but and she turns and notices that her bag is in the checked luggage area. And And she turns around and it's by the bench. She's like, well, that's weird. She goes and sits back down. And then the voiceover kicks in. So I love it when they mix it up a little bit. And the voiceover kicks over and says, Millicent Barnes, age 25, young woman waiting for a bus on a rainy November night. Not a very imaginative type is Miss Barnes, not given to undue anxiety or fears, or for that matter, even the most temporal flights of fancy. Like most young career women, she has a generic classification as a, quote, girl with the head on her shoulders, end of quote. All of which is mentioned now because, in just a moment, the head on Miss Barnes' shoulders will be put to a test. Circumstances will assault her sense of reality, and a chain of nightmares will put her sanity on a block. Millicent Barnes, who, in 1 minute, will wonder if she's going mad.
Indeed.
And it's, to not to jump too far into it, but it's really is like one of those yellow wallpaper tests of like, what's going on here? What I like about this, and we can get into more of this later, it's not totally clear because you could look at one path and say, oh, this is what happened, but you could run this a few different ways. And I think that Serling intentionally left some clues in here that could mix it up a little bit as not being very clear cut. So Millicent Barnes goes back up to the desk and is like, hey, so I can't help but notice that bag there looks just like mine. And he's like, so, it's your bag. You checked it in. She's like, I didn't check it in. And she turns around and her bag is gone. And it's like, wait, what? Like, she just kind of freaked out. And so she washes her hands in the bathroom, and the cleaning lady's like, you don't look so well. She's like, no, I'm fine. Cleaning lady's like, yeah, but the last time you were in here. And she's like, I haven't been in here. She's totally getting, what is that, gaslit by like everybody in the station. So she's trying to figure it out. And as she's about to leave the restroom, the door swings open and she sees herself sitting on the bench. And herself looks exactly like her, like casually casts her gaze up and looks at her. It's kind of a very creepy moment because you wouldn't think it would be that big a deal, but the casualness of the doppelganger, I'm just going to say.
It doesn't hurt that it's storming outside during this whole episode.
Right. And the music cues are great for this too. It just really does a great job building that tension. So she closes the door and she's like holding it closed. And the cleaning lady's like, are you sure you're okay? And she's like, I'm fine. And you can see her. She does a great job, the actress, of showing that kind of building up her strength to be like, okay, nope, I'm going to face this, whatever it is. Yanks the door open. And
we got to stop right there for 1 second. Them fucking paper towels, dude. Those were the hardest looking. Like, it was like she was when she was leaving that bathroom. I think like the reason she started seeing things is probably because she tried to dry her hands with them. But it was like drying your hands with copier paper is what it looked like.
Oh man.
Didn't it? Did you notice that too? Or no?
I didn't even notice that. No.
I think a lot of it was the sound of them. They were exceptionally like papery. And I was just like, oh, I have a thing with like, I don't like the idea of just taking paper and dry paper and rubbing it on myself. It bothers me.
It should bother you.
I don't know why.
That's disturbing.
Yeah.
No, that's wild. I wonder if that was like they were just that cheap.
Yeah, they
or
had to be
props or something.
Wonder if they were even really paper towels. Who knows?
So she kind of girds herself and she whips open the door like, I'm gonna take this on, and she sees nothing, and her bag is back, and she's like, okay. So she sits back down. She's kind of talking to herself. And then she doesn't sit back down. She goes by the baggage area and sees that her bag is no longer in the baggage area. And so she's getting really confused. Like, okay, wait a minute. It was there. Now it wasn't there. And now it's not. It's where it's supposed to be. And she gets up as if she's going to talk to the clerk, and he gives her a nasty look, and she's kind of like, okay, I guess I won't ask him. So she goes over to the old sleeping couple, and she's like, hey, did you see someone at the bench like me? And like she wakes the lady up, and the dude was totally snoozing the whole time. And she's like, well, I don't know. I wasn't really looking. And the guy's like, what's your problem now? And she's like, no, just never mind. Sorry. It was my bad. And she goes back, and that's when she sees that the bag is not in the baggage area, but it is by the bench. And so she sits down, starts questioning herself.
You wonder at this point, like, I mean, it's obvious now to anybody. I think you kind of get that there's a doppelganger situation happening. So I'm wondering, like, how many though at this point? Because when you describe the bag situation, it insinuates more than two.
I don't know. It was, to me, it was like, okay, did the other person, because she doesn't ask the clerk in between, right? So maybe the doppelganger came back up
Took the
and
bag back.
took the bag back, because, like, who knows, right?
Yeah, it could be that, or it could be a third
it's weird.
doppelganger.
It could be a third doppelganger. It could be just this weirdness. Well, and there's some other clues that might point to what you're saying too later on, because she's like, okay. And she sits down, and you get to hear her inner voice, and she's like questioning herself, and she's trying to figure it out. And she's like, I'm not going crazy. I don't have a fever. What is going on? She's just trying to figure it out. And all of a sudden he hears Miss, and she's like, yes. Like, it startles her out of it. And we meet a young man from Binghamton. His name is Paul Grinstead, and he's waiting for the same bus. And he sits down. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I was supposed to be in Syracuse tonight by 10. The planes were all grounded, so I took a cab from Binghamton. The darn thing skidded and ran into a tree a few miles outside of here. I had to walk all the way into town to get here. Okay, so this was my first, like, maybe this isn't just a bus depot, because the cab skidded and ran into a tree a few miles outside of there, and we don't know how Millicent got here. So, putting a little tally by is this limbo?
Right.
Is this, are they dead? Could be. But it's one of those where I imagine if I had been watching previous episodes, just the seasons so far, the first time through, I might be a little bit like, well, wait, is this gal dead and that guy's dead? Like, is everybody dead? Is that what's going on here? Because
yeah, we kind of
a few episodes ago, what was it? Are you going my way?
The Hitchhiker. Yep.
Where I'm like, oh, maybe that's it. So,
have you ever, just quick aside, have you ever seen The Similars? It came out in 2015. No. It's very heavily inspired by this episode, and I almost forgot to note it. Like, it is, when I was watching it, but because I don't know that it's mentioned like in the trivia or anything, but it's called The Similars, or Los Parecidos, which it's Spanish language. It's on Pluto right now. You can watch it, and it's almost this. It's kind of this episode fleshed out into a feature with a little more, some twists that are different.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's got a very a modern imposter kind of vibe. That film sounds like it might be really cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
So Paul starts talking to her about it, and at first she's like, I don't really want, you're gonna think I'm crazy, and he's like, no, come on, maybe I can help. And so she explains everything that's going on, and he's like, yeah, well, that's weird. Must be like delusional, or maybe there's somebody who looks just like you, which kind of is what she's saying too. So at one point they're like, all right, well, she's like, you've been very kind. And, one moment in between there, she's like talking about her bag, and it's kind of cool how they do the shot, and you see the two of them on the bench. And she goes, oh, my bag. And she looks over, and her bag is gone, except then he goes, no, it's over there. And the camera pans over just enough that you see that it was just out of frame,
Yeah.
which is kind of a cool camera trick to me of like, oh, they just did the thing that, she wasn't looking quite behind her. So, kind of fun little trick there. And then the bus arrives and they all go to get on the bus. But again, if we go with their dead theme, they don't get on the bus. They go give their tickets, and she looks up and she screams and runs back inside, and he doesn't look at the bus. He just chases after her. And then the camera pans up, and the doppelganger is on the bus looking out the window and smiling.
Son of a bitch.
So, oh my God. So, that's it. That's the end of what we see of the doppelganger. Well, not to spoil that part, but we clip to Millicent unconscious, and Paul's like talking to different people. The cleaning lady's helping her out with a cool cloth, and the guy comes in from the bus. He's like, "Hey, look, are you coming or not?" And he's like, "Nah, we'll skip. We'll wait for the next one." And the guy's like, "Okay," and the clerk's like, "She's weird." So she kind of wakes up, and he's like, "No, I told him to skip the bus because we'll wait for the next one." So he's really kind of thoughtful in this way. But at the same time, she wakes up and she's like, "I was remembering." And she starts talking about this concept that she's heard of. She doesn't know where or where she's read it or heard it, but it's the idea of multiple realities, of a parallel world or an alternate dimension, different plane of existence that comes into convergence with ours, and through some unknown event that a imposter or a double can enter our realm from theirs. And if they enter in our realm, they have to survive by replacing the person in that realm. So Paul's like, it's a little metaphysical for me. And it's funny because, this is kind of commonplace now, right? I mean, as we talk about comic books more and more and it becomes part of our popular
Right.
culture, this kind of sci-fi idea is like, oh, well, maybe it's just another plane of existence,
I think
And
that
people,
captures the imagination so easily because, it gives you the idea of unlimited second chances too.
yeah. Well, and it's the it starts to bring that kind of concept into the mainstream of introducing an idea that otherwise would have been just dismissed as insanity or whatever, which we're right on the cusp of it in this episode, right? He's introducing something in this that some people may be like, oh yeah, I believe that. And some people are like, it's a little metaphysical for me. So in this moment, she's starts talking about it. And the way she's starting to talk about it, she's getting this real glazed look on her face. And she's like staring forward, and the camera does it several times, clips back to him and then back to her. And she's just silent with her jaw open and staring forward. And you're like, okay, she's got a look on her face that is a little bit, she's completely lost in that thought. And he's like, hey, I could call a friend of mine, and she's not responding at all. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go call my friend. So he goes over to the clerk, and he's like, and the clerk's like, tell you what, she's spooking me out. He says some phrase that was kind of odd to me. He's like, I'd as leave as have her go, or something like that.
New Englanders,
Which I think,
man.
what's that?
I said those New Englanders in there.
Yeah, right. I think it was like a East Coast phrasing that I'd never heard before, but I kept imagining Ed Gwynn saying it. I'd have leave as blah blah blah. But for those not getting that reference, I was trying to do Pet Cemetery with
Judd.
What was his Jed?
Yeah,
Jeb?
not Judd.
Judd.
As in like the Judds, as in Love Can Build a Bridge. The Judds.
Oh,
not in that
that's
Rod.
A great way to remember it.
Yeah.
Some things are better off dead. Wait, what is this phrase?
Sometimes dead are better. But I like the idea. We should make some knockoff merchandise that has slightly wrong horror movie quotes on them.
Sometimes dead is more better.
Here's Jimmy. Whatever you do, don't feed them after 1 a.m.
That's right. That's perfect. And then people will comment on it, and then you start a conversation.
Yep.
There you go. Call them starter shirts. So she gets up, or he gets up, talks to the clerk. Clerk is like, she's spooky. He's like, yeah. And he's like, are you going to call your friend? Because he proposes that he can, Paul has said he can call his friend in Tully, which apparently is a nearby city. And if Paul's like, I don't have a friend in Tully. I just think maybe she needs to talk to somebody. And he's like, who are you going to call? And of course, as a child of like the mid 80s, you got to know there is a visceral instinct when somebody says, who are you going to call?
Yeah.
Because you can't think of anyone else but the Ghostbusters.
Right. We were
when that
trained,
happens.
very heavily
it's
trained.
Pavlov's phrase. So then he does end up calling the police, and he goes back to we show him calling the police, and then Millicent we see go into the bathroom, and it's dark, and she flips on the light, and she's like, where are you? She's like, where did you go? What do you want? She's trying to confront this and kind of dig into it. Now we've seen that the doppelganger is gone. And so, but it's interesting. She's kind of like trying to figure out how to confront it. And then she comes out, and we see Paul walk to the bathroom and kind of hear her in there. And he's like, oh yeah, this is, she needs some help. So he's like, why don't we get some fresh air? And so the two of them walk outside, and we see the police car pull up, and just no questions asked, grab her, throw her in the car, and take off. And the police officer and Paul just nod at each other. That was the extent of their conversation. So it's like, well, that was sudden. And then they just drive off, right? So it was weird. And he's like not making eye contact. He feels terrible about it, as he should. He just called and put somebody apparently to commit them. And so setting that conversation of his responsibility aside, they come back inside, and the clerk is like, well, I don't know if you want to sleep here, but feel free. He said, this is the line that, again, a little clue for me. This place is like a tomb now, between now and tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
It's like a tomb.
And you're looking at like the witching hour or the devil's hour. They're there between like 2 and 3 a.m. like most of the events there. Yeah.
So Paul goes to the bench. They do a very clear close-up of him setting his bag down, as if to repeat the cycle. What's interesting about it too is they do a camera technique where they zoom into the frame. So it's not like they zoomed the camera into his bag. They did this after the fact. The frame was captured with him just putting it down, and they zoomed in with an effect to that. You can see it's because the screen gets grainy.
Yeah, it made me wonder too, like that must have just been either it was a decision made in editing, or they just didn't have the apparatus to move the camera that way.
Right, exactly. So he puts that down. We see him go into the foreground to take a drink of water, and when he gets up from the water, his bag is gone, and he's looking around, and he sees someone run out the doors. So he chases after him. He's like, hey, and he goes after him, and we see that he is now chasing after himself, and himself, his doppelganger, has like a real goofy smile in his face.
That's for some reason. That part to me was like one of the spookier parts, is that the big smile, because you kind of assume that these doppelgangers are a little bit harmless, because you're like, well, they're, either this, with her Millicent, we think maybe she's losing her mind, which isn't, harmless, but it's also pretty different than coming up against like a physical, otherworldly kind of threat type of thing.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, okay, so these doppelgangers are just kind of a spooky mystery, but you really don't feel that they're up to something for certain until you see him smiling. And then you look at the whole episode a little differently after that too, I think, because you're like, well, they do have some sort of motivation. He's happy that he's being chased.
Yeah.
You're like, but why?
Well, and clearly getting away with it. And then you were like, oh, wait, but Millicent's clone also, or the doppelganger also smiled when she was on the bus about to get away.
Yeah.
There's something about that bus station possibly being the nexus of where these realities converge. And if one can get away, maybe the other can't, you know, who knows, right?
Yeah. We could have a whole Severance type of situation going on here.
Oh, I need to watch that show. Everybody's talking about it.
It's fantastic. So is Devs. If you want something that you can get knocked out quickly, that will give you kind of a Severance vibe, but also super Twilight Zone inspired material, as is Severance. If you didn't know, that's very much a Twilight Zone style story. But Devs is only 8 episodes. It's on Hulu. It's Alex Gardner, the guy who did Ex Machina and Annihilation. And Civil War.
Annihilation. Holy cow.
Yeah.
That movie.
Awesome director. Really great cast. Nick Offerman's in it. Allison Pill. Just really, really good.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm excited.
That one
excited for his next project. That same director is doing that warfare movie where it's all real time action sequence. The entire movie is a battle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sounds intense.
Absolutely.
So Paul calls out after him and he's like, "Where are you?" Just kind of looking around. And that's the end of the episode, is the clone running away. So the outro goes, Serling is obscure and metaphysical explanation to cover a phenomenon. Reasons dredged out of the shadows to explain away that which cannot be explained. Call it parallel planes or just insanity. Whatever it is, you'll find it in the Twilight Zone.
Things that make you go, Wouldn't it be hilarious? That
yes.
that
make you go,
replace the Twilight Zone theme.
It would have, I'm sure, the exact same effect. It would not take away from the spookiness of the episodes at all. So yeah, multiple theories on this, right? It could be doppelgangers. This could be a nexus of that. It could be that they're dead, and Paul is just the next person to die to take Millicent's place in this this limbo world. It could be a bunch of stuff.
You came up with some pretty good theories.
I like
that I hadn't really considered.
I like they leave it open, so it could be a lot of stuff.
Yeah, when your doppelganger goes away on business but comes back with a tan.
Which one of you really is living then?
It's true. Yeah, think about these things.
So yeah, very, very interesting episode. I like how they leave it really open, and it is creepy. The smile of the clones. I don't know. It sets me off. Speaking of something that is creepy and warranting discussion, next week's episode.
Yeah, the monsters are due on Maple Street.
So good.
One of the first episodes I ever saw was our next one. Yeah.
There's I read the, I love this episode for a lot of reasons, but I also had the Twilight Zone comic book of this one at one point too. It's such a great example of, and we'll get into it next week, but it's such a great example of what the Twilight Zone really can accomplish, how it can present an idea that looks so simple and spell it out in a way that you're like, oh, that could never happen. And you're like,
right. Yeah.
You sure?
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. We'll be back in 1 week with The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. Be good to yourselves.
Take care now.